Tuncurry funeral director Alan Pearce claims a crematorium would be better located in Taree than on this 46-hectare site at Failford. He said the Tuncurry Cemetery and Memorial Gardens would meet the needs of the Great Lakes population for the next 100 years. But a spokesman for the developer says Failford is an ideal location, close to Taree as well as Tuncurry.
We're only there to work in with the current funeral directors. We're not there to oppose them or try to put them out of business. We want to cooperate with them.
John Hay says Failford was chosen for the complex when the Greater Taree City Council rejected a development application for the crematorium. It may be some time before a crematorium is located in Taree.
Taree Council are complaining all the time they can't update their fire engines, etc., and yet they're talking about spending $1.1 million on something that we're willing to do at no cost to council.
The proposed complex will be based on those operating in Queensland. It will include a funeral home, lawn cemetery, chapel, crematorium and tea rooms. The Skinner Company has lodged other development applications for crematoriums at Goulburn and on the South Coast. Tracy Walsh, NBN News. The Datsun station wagon was travelling north on a sweeping bend when the driver apparently lost control in light rain. The vehicle spun to the wrong side and into the path of a southbound truck laden with refrigerated meat. The station wagon was squashed between the truck and the guardrail.
The lady was thrown from the vehicle, yes, on impact, and is deceased.
Ambulance officers had to free the body from the bushes near the guardrail. The 35-year-old truck driver from Kalunguluk was uninjured. One lane of highway traffic was blocked for nearly 2 hours while fuel was washed from the road. It's a dangerous section of the highway, particularly in the wet.
Maybe a bit fast for the conditions, but she wasn't exceeding the speed limit.
Tracy Walsh, NBN News.
Charlton was found lying in a pool of blood in this home just after 11:30 last night. He was rushed from Gorokan on the Central Coast to Wyong Hospital, but was pronounced dead on arrival. Police searched the home, finding blood-splattered boots and a knife. Today, police interviewed the mens de facto, who shared the house and a dog breeding business with Charlton.
It seems an argument had ensued in the kitchen area of the premises, a physical fight. During that fight, the person charged reached for a knife on the sink, turned and stabbed the deceased once in the stomach.
It's alleged that after the attack, McIntyre ran to nearby houses, banging on doors and yelling for neighbours to call for emergency help.
She just knocked on the van, she was knocking on the doors saying bring the police.
Melissa McIntyre was legally responsible for the care of the physically disabled Charlton, but police say carer turned to killer and have charged her with murder. Melissa McIntyre appeared briefly before a Justice of the Peace at Gosford Courthouse. Bail was formally refused and she'll appear at Wyong Local Court on Monday. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
"234 athletes took part in this morning's event. Chris Moffat leading the men out of the 750-metre swim leg, with Lake Cat-Eye's Wayne Ellis a close second. Having finished third in the first round at Grafton, Ellis increased his lead in the 20k cycle and had a minute's break going into the final transition. He finished the event in 1 hour and 2 minutes, 31 seconds ahead of the fast-finishing John Crimson and Coffs Harbour's Matt Sylvester. In the women's, race 1 winner Foster's Kerrith Duncanson continued her outstanding form, beating Kirsten Schultz and Tari's Helen Corbett. The third round will be held at Port Stephens on December 11. Resuming at 1 for 6 this morning, Illawarra struggled from the opening overs. Lincoln Woods claiming his third wicket of the innings when Phil Sangarella mistimed his drive to mid-off. 3 for 31, and Rob McMahon was the only batsman offering any resistance. He too finally succumbing to Dillon. Yesterday's top scorer with the bat, Peter March, then picked up his first wicket before Steve Mace did likewise, a belated decision leaving the visitors at 6 for 81. Jeff Cook and spinner David Rickson, complete with plaster cast on his broken arm, wrapped up the tail. Illawarra dismissed for 136. Meantime, the Hunter Eagles lost both matches in its final doubleheader against the Adelaide Giants at Marathon Stadium last night. The home side was beaten 7-2 in the first match before losing the second 17-6 to finish with a 1-3 record for the weekend. The Eagles travel to the ACT next Friday to play the Canberra Bushrangers.
The Moree repairers invited the Executive Director of the Motor Traders Association, Tony Selms, to make a personal assessment of the desperate situation. It was ironic that when Mr Selms visited Moree 3 years ago, it rained. When he flew into the town yesterday, an electrical storm hit the district. During his inspections of machinery and vehicle repair shops, Mr Selms was told that there was little work for skilled tradespeople and apprentices. Some firms had no work. Mr Selms had some answers.
Trying to find reasonable and achievable assistance, particularly in things like payroll tax alleviation. We're looking at what we can do to assist apprentices maintain their skills and indeed achieve their qualifications, because sooner or later, looking on the positive side, the drought will break and all of us need qualified technicians to carry on the work, because once the crops start growing, they need to be harvested, because no one has any money until they harvest, and you need technicians to be able to make sure the machinery works. So we're trying to find ways and means of keeping those skills in town and available for when they're needed.
Another solution will be for the association to take young people nearing the end of their apprenticeship to Sydney to complete their trade course.
We have, through the Automotive Group Training Scheme, a capacity to take a number of apprentices so we can ensure that they finish and obtain their qualification.
Mr Selms also said the association may investigate ways of financing fees to enable Moree members to remain in the association until there's an improvement in the rural situation.
When council secured 160 hectares of green point for parkland off developer McCloy's, it was in return for approval of a housing subdivision. Tonight, though, that deal is under threat, with a report recommending that council refuse approval of 100 housing blocks of land off Leichhardt and Roma roads at Valentine. One reason, according to the report, is that development of the ridgeline land would be visually unappealing. But while one department is recommending refusal, another is advising council to go ahead with the subdivision. Councillor Kilpatrick agrees it's a case of the right hand not knowing what the left is doing.
There does seem to be a lack of communication there, but I think that's the conditions proposed by in the approval of the subdivision, I think, cover most, if not all, of the issues raised by the Strategic Programs Department.
The Mayor believes and hopes the majority of councillors will tonight ignore the controversial report and give approval to all 537 blocks, saving the agreement with McCloy's.
Would hate to see, after the work we've put in to get to this stage, that it'd be jeopardised, but I'm hoping that'll happen.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The Newcastle selectors face the same dilemma as their national counterparts did today. Both committees face with an embarrassment of riches. Following another good performance against Illawarra over the weekend, they named a side with remarkable batting depth and a bowling attack to match. The only changes from the weekend, Hamilton Wickham spinner John Hill to play in the opening game against the Northwest in place of the unavailable Mark Curry, while Jamie Heath returns for Lincoln Woods, who took 4 for 30 yesterday.
Well, Lincoln's got to be very unlucky, but Jamie did bowl well at the SCG in the one-day final, and he also scored runs there, so both of them are very capable batsmen for number 11 bats. They might have embarrassed some of our middle-order batsmen yesterday.
There's plenty to play for over the 3-day carnival, with as many as 7 Newcastle players tipped for country selection. That side to play the state second 11, Zimbabwe, and compete in the national titles in Western Australia. To guarantee representation, Newcastle must first beat several sides this weekend to qualify for the country final, including the ACT.
In the last 5 years, we've played Canberra in the final 4 times, and it was 2 wins apiece. Obviously, there won't be an ACT Newcastle final this year, but virtually, if you win that, you'd have to be a big show of winning the lot.
For the sake of a greener school ground and a cleaner community, these students aren't afraid to get their hands a little dirty. Hamilton North Public School is one of a dozen schools in the Newcastle area that was commended under the Council's Clean and Green Project Earth Awards. Projects range from revegetation of local beaches and parks to planting native gardens near school grounds to attract native birds.
Some plants had to stay in the sun, other ones had to stay in shady areas. We got to pull any seed we wanted out of the buckets and then we could plant them.
We planted some trees in the sand dunes because it supports the beach, because if our beaches get eaten away and if there wasn't dunes there, the water just come up.
First prizes went to Hamilton Public School, first and second class, Shortland Public School and years 3 and 4 from Hamilton North.
There's a lot of schools out there doing great things. They just need to let us know about it so they get properly rewarded.
In their short history, the Newcastle Knights' only major trophy at the top level came in the Nissan Sevens in 1991. The Fijian Sevens will be the start of another arduous pre-season build-up. Coach Malcolm really not underestimating the value of such tournaments, leading into his first Winfield Cup campaign.
Once the guy's out there competing, you know, he's out there and he's got to give his best. So naturally, I'm not going to stress to them that it's vitally important that we get a major result over the weekend, but I would expect them to play at a level that they're happy with.
Full club training has been underway for 3 weeks, with the 7 squad conducting further sessions in preparation for this weekend. The experience of Mark Sargent and Robbie McCormack will lead a young Knights squad to Fiji, with several outside backs included, giving really his first look at some potential regular first graders such as Brett Grogan.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm pretty sure we'll get plenty of opportunities. The 2 Johns brothers will provide that for us, and we'll just see what the finishing's like.
The Knights have already signed 3 former Fijian rugby union players for next season, with at least 2 to return with the side next week. As well as assisting with development work, Really said he would be looking at other Fijian talent during the tournament.
Classes and playgrounds were empty across most schools in the Hunter today. While some supervision was provided, thousands of students stayed away. The Teachers Federation says while numbers were down at 33 stop work meeting venues, almost 90% of high school teachers took part in the strike, nearly 80% of primary teachers. Linked to Sydney via Sky Channel hookups, there was overwhelming support to walk off the job again early next year if their 10% claim is not met. At Hamilton, the meeting voted to support an amendment calling for rolling stoppages.
It would mean that after the 24-hour stoppage of the beginning of next year, then there would be a consideration of half-day stoppages to follow.
The Federation has challenged the government to donate today's foregone salaries, estimated at $3 million, for drought relief. Donations gathered in the Hunter raised almost $3,000. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The delisting in early October sent shockwaves through the abattoir, with the US reviewers picking it up on procedural and structural matters. Its management immediately reviewed its control measures, and as a result, the abattoir has been relisted.
Relisting means that we can once again re-export our beef to the United States, Canada and Mexico. It gives us greater flexibility and more scope in our purchasing of cattle.
But it comes just as the Australian meat export industry is reeling in the face of the contamination scare. Wingham Abattoir, after overcoming the last export hurdle, is feeling the effects of the latest disaster.
The contamination scare has effectively cut our production by 30%, mainly because we have to take fat samples out of each lot of animals that we get in and send it away to laboratories for testing.
This testing takes time, which means the slaughtering process is restricted. Cattle butchered at the Wingham Abattoir come from all over the state. Manning farmers can breathe easy for now. According to Mr Kennedy, there have been no reports so far of cattle from the Manning contaminated. Amanda Bolger, NBN News. Foster Skillshare is contracted to do the weekly curbside pickup, but some members of Great Lakes Council claim well-meaning residents are putting their recyclables out to be collected, only to have them dumped at a local tip.
Both Taree residents and Great Lakes residents have been scammed, as you put it. I mean, Taree residents are diligently recycling at their curbside, thinking that they're doing the right thing, it's going in to be recycled. And in fact, it's the recyclable material is being dumped at our Tuncurry tip.
The Skillshare project manager and Deputy Mayor of Great Lakes, John Wheat, strongly denies the allegations, describing them as outrageous.
The bottom line is that these allegations are untrue. Why, after we go to all the trouble of picking up recyclables, would we dump them in a tip? They're money to us, they're our bread and butter.
Some councillors are unhappy with the way the investigation has been handled and say they will take their information to the Independent Commission Against Corruption to be investigated further.
We have the photographs. So we're not only going to ICAC, I believe that we owe it to the ratepayers to go to the Ombudsman and also the department.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
The study was the most comprehensive look at the flora, fauna and soil of the region ever and includes the council areas of Grafton, Aldmara, Copmanhurst, Maclean and Nimboida. It's one of 18 such studies begun throughout the state in 1990 to give the people of New South Wales the chance to examine the consequences of the contentious forestry industry.
The EIS itself covers some 143,000 hectares of state forest in the Grafton management area, and it's that aspect that really makes it unique, that previous EISs have tended to concentrate on small areas of forest or small operations.
The report says nearly a third of state forests in the Grafton Management District would be preserved, including rainforest and many old growth areas, with the logged parts to be harvested on a sustained yield basis.
The community then have got any concerns or anything to contribute or add to it, that's their opportunity. They can put in a submission, and what they say in those submissions will be taken into account by the Department of Planning in making the final decision.
The environmental impact statement is on public display until the beginning of next February.
The Swansea Bar has claimed a number of boats and lives and has always been approached with caution by a crew from Solar Technology Australia, who carry out regular maintenance work on the East Coast unmanned navigational beacons, such as the one on Moon Island. But today they were caught out.
We were trying to land ashore on the little beach part of on the inner part of the island there. We had one fella off, the next fella off, and then one wave come in sideways to us and just pushed us straight sideways up onto the rocks.
The men's 5-metre runabout was battered by the waves until rescuers arrived. Adrian Elsmore, who was on board the stricken runabout, swam a tow line to the police launch Intrepid, which had been dispatched from Newcastle.
I got volunteered, mate. I was the first one to go out there. I was washing over the rocks. The rocks were all shallow all around, so that was a bit difficult to get over all them, but once you passed them, it was all right.
Throughout their ordeal, the men remained calm and were well equipped with life jackets and radio equipment. A non-swimmer, skipper Bruce Hawkins, put the incident down as one of the hazards of the job. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
It's these creative ideas that impress selectors when choosing some of the Hunter's best Year 12 artworks. The display is similar to the statewide Art Express exhibition. High schools were each invited to submit one outstanding work.
Like music or like a book that is written, art is a method of communication, and I believe that all these students are communicating, and as an artist that's what we want to do, make a statement.
The HSC exhibition is open at the Regent Gallery until January 8.
There's an old wisdom that families are the building blocks of societies. It's an adage that's been set in stone, or rather clay, at Rutherford's St Paul's Primary School. 105 families have made a permanent contribution to the International Year of the Family and their school. The school's new sign, made of handcrafted clay tiles.
We did it because we're Aboriginal, we're part Aboriginal. The meeting places, that means when people travelled from camp to camp, the Aborigines, they would walk from one camp and set it up, and that would be their meaning, that would be their symbol for it.
We put lots of different patterns on it because me and my mum like to do craft.
The tiles depict dozens of aspects of family life. There were no creative boundaries as long as the designs related to families. A ceremony will be held to bless the sign on Saturday. As an artist, he sold millions of records. As a teen idol, he made millions of fans weak in the knees. And when he died, the entertainment world mourned. But 17 years after the blue-eyed Memphis cowboy with the slow southern drawl died, the Elvis obsession which has kept this exhibition on the road is as powerful as ever.
Millions have seen it since his death. Elvis is basically an icon of rock and roll, and he's a real inspiration to most rock and roll entertainers today.
Put together by a long-time friend, the entire collection comprises more than 1,200 articles. This exhibition has just 100 pieces, intended to reveal a side of Elvis few people saw, as well as clothes such as the first jumpsuit he wore on stage, his karate gi and outfits from his private wardrobe. There's also the bed from his Beverly Hills home and the tools the doctor delivered Elvis and his twin brother with in 1935. But it's all set to go under the auctioneer's hammer in Las Vegas in June.
Everything sold for about 3 times what it was estimated to sell at. It was a very, very big auction. In fact, it was the biggest auction of Elvis ever. And this year, I have no idea.
The Elvis tour will travel to Terrigal, Tamworth, Grafton and Jupiter's Casino at Broadbeach after its Newcastle show finishes on Sunday.
Throwing doesn't seem to be a problem, and batting's okay.
It's been a long day for these students from Barabara Central, but an early morning start and 6 hours on the road failed to dampen the excitement when they arrived at Blackwell's Park Primary School. For the next 4 days, they'll be in the hands and homes of their newfound friends.
The whole aim of the thing is to let these country children realise that their city cousins do really care about them. We care about their families because we're all part of this great nation, and we want them to think that people in the city do know what a drought's all about.
Like much of rural New South Wales, Barabara is coping as best it can with the hardships brought on by the drought. The lack of water turning daily tasks city folk take for granted into a gruelling affair.
We've got one family I know of that bathes in one bucket of water and uses that to flush the toilet at the end of the day. So for some people it is very desperate, and obviously with the lack of money that's coming into their homes, it's not likely they'll be going on Christmas holidays this year.
After a good night's sleep, the visitors will be shown the city sights, including Newcastle's popular beaches.
Most of the people who had the opportunity jumped at the chance to get a trip down and see a bit of water. We haven't seen that much up our way for some time.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Doctors across Australia met last night to hear via a satellite link-up from London the results of a 5-year drug trial. Simvastatin, a cholesterol-lowering drug, was used on 4,000 patients with heart disease. The results are promising.
For people with established coronary disease, then there's no doubt cholesterol treatment is going to be worthwhile. But how low the cholesterol should be, we don't know.
Researchers still need to determine how low a patient's cholesterol needs to be, but doctors say lives will be saved.
Over a 5-year period, for every 30 people who took the drug, approximately 1 would have their life saved.
But the drug is only for people with a history of heart disease.
If there's no heart attack on the horizon, then one's taking drug with the risk of side effects for no benefit.
Jane Anderson, NBN News.